So let's see here. Okay, we're back on. Sister Josie has volunteered to read Matthew 16, so let me just get that on the screen here for her. Let's go to Matthew. I'll do it to a single view here so it doesn't confuse her. Let me see here. So I think I'll go with the ESV. Should be decent. All right. Here you go, sis, whenever you're ready.
All right. Thank you so much. Matthew 16, the Pharisees and Sadducees demand signs.
Has volunteered to read Matthew 16, so let me.
Ready? Verse 1. And the Pharisees and Sadducees came, and to test him, they asked him to show them a sign from heaven. He answered them, when it is evening, you say, it will be fair weather, for the sky is red. And in the morning, it will be stormy today, for the sky is red and threatening. You know how to interpret the appearance of the sky, but you cannot interpret the signs of the times. An evil and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, but no sign will be given to it except the sign of Jonah. So he left them and departed. The leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees, verse 5. When the disciples reached the other side, they had forgotten to bring any bread. Yahusha said to them, watch and beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. And they began discussing it among themselves, saying, we brought no bread. But Yahusha, aware of this, said, O you of little faith, why are you discussing among yourselves the fact that you have no bread? Do you not yet perceive? Do you not remember the 5 loaves for the 5,000 and how many baskets you gathered? Or the 7 loaves for the 4,000 and how many baskets you gathered? How is it that you fail to understand that I did not speak about bread? Beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Then they understood that he did not tell them to beware of the leaven of bread, but of the teaching of the Pharisees and Sadducees. Peter confesses Yahusha as the Christ. 13. Now, when Yahusha came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say that the Son of Man is? And they said, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets. He said to them, but who do you say that I am? Simon Peter replied, you are the Christ, the Son of the living Elohim. And Yahusha answered him, blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on the rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Then he strictly charged the disciples to tell no one that he was the Christ.
Yeah. 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 What's interesting here is, again, goes back to that book I was referencing earlier that's not in our canons today. Just so happens to picture someone as the Son of Man before he came to earth. And it's kind of interesting that Yahusha says to Kepha, to Peter, like, you man has not revealed this to you. I kind of wonder if this concept was lost somehow. This divine Son of Man character somehow was lost by the time of Messiah coming to earth, or they started questioning whether the Son of Man would be, basically this celestial, pre-existent character that would take on human flesh. So it seems like an understanding they've lost somehow or something. Because like for Yahusha to say that, it's like weird, because it's like this concept is definitely in their literature around the time period. So it's like it shouldn't be a foreign concept to the disciples, but it's like I don't know. I could be reading too much into that, but it seems like it's something that Yahuwah had to put into Peter's heart, into Kapha's heart, for him to understand, and that Yahusha is the Son of Man. Because we see it in other places. They're like, who is he that he can do all these things? He's commanding the storm to stop. He's walking on water. He's doing all these things that a mortal man should not be able to do. No human is able to command the seas to stop. We see that in the book of Psalms and other places. That's the Father doing that. Yahuwah has the authority to command the seas, to still the storm, still the raging sea and all that. Go ahead, Brother Joshua. I see you got your hand up.
There seems to be a different context as far as what you bind on earth being bound in Shamayim and releasing on earth and released in Shamayim than what is commonly taught in the Circe. Because you see it once again in Matthew 18. You see it says hold on. Why did it go back to Matthew 16? Hold on. Oh, that's on the wrong page. So you see it once again in Matthew 18, where he says, if he refuse to hear them, tell it to the assembly. But if he refuses even to hear the assembly, let him be to you as a heathen and as a tax collector. Assuredly, I say to you, whatever you bind on earth shall have been bound in Shamayim, and whatever you loose on earth shall have been loosed in Shamayim. Again, assuredly, I say to you that if two of you agree on earth about anything that they may ask, it will be done for them by my Father in Shamayim. Also, you see in other verses where he says, to whom you forgive or to whom you remit their sin, it shall be forgiven. But whoever sins you withhold, it shall not. I don't know if you're familiar with what I'm talking about, but the concept of binding on earth and loosing on earth seems to be related to omitting or not omitting the sins of people in the assembly. I don't know if you can expound on that, or if you understand what I'm trying to say. It's not something I fully comprehend, but it doesn't seem to be the context of speaking to a spirit saying, I bind you.
I'll be honest with you. I never had a firm foundation on what that actually means, as far as if it's spiritual or physical. I always took it as spiritual, but I'll be honest with you, I'm not too firm on either one. The what I've always understood of it is that it's talking about binding whatever you say in the earthly realm. If we take it a literal interpretation of it, right? It says, whatever you bound on earth is bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth is loosed in heaven. I think more of what Yahusha is saying is that what you do in this realm affects the heavenly realm.
Right. Okay.
That's what he's trying to say. I don't know about the whole, like you were mentioning, the whole demon casting out thing. I have no idea if that's even applicable, if that's even in context with what he's saying. It could be in a spiritual aspect, a physical aspect. It's more or less like the literal interpretation will be, what you do in the Eretz realm, in the heavenly realm, it's like whatever happens in this realm, usually happens in the spiritual realm, if that makes any sense. It's like always going to be copied. And the earth is a shadow of the heavenlies. I guess that's the most literal interpretation I could take of it. So I guess where the church gets the concept of that being for spiritual warfare is they're thinking, well, if you bind a spirit, in this realm, then, it's going to be bound in other. I guess that's where they're getting that concept. I really don't know. Like, it's an assumption, I'm assuming.
Doesn't seem to be, because that's definitely an understanding that I had at one point, but reading the verses before it and right after it doesn't seem to be the context, as well as if you look in the other chapters or the other books that speak about the same thing. I think John talks about it for one, and then you have something in Isaiah. He's actually pulling from Isaiah right here. So it just doesn't seem to be the context. Something to look more into.
Yeah, because I've never fully understood that, to be honest with you. I'm being completely transparent right now. I don't even know how any other way to take it than what I've been taught how to take it. So I really want to look into that more myself, the binding and loosing concept. I know, like you said, people have used it in spiritual warfare, but it seems like that's kind of like it might be taken out of context of what it's talking about. So yeah, I need to look more into that, to be honest. The last thing I want to mention before we end today's study, I know it says church in English. Again, I want to go to, though, in the Greek, where a lot of your translations say church, you should not say church. It's ecclesia in the Greek, which if they translated it literally word for word in English would be the called out ones. Congregation's a better word, more accurate word. Which, by the way, the Protestant reformer William Tyndale in his 1535 Tyndale Bible actually translated that Greek word as congregation in that same verse. So where it talks about that the gates of Hades or hell shall not prevail against my congregation is how it should read. That upon this rock I will build my congregation, and the gates of Hades or hell shall not prevail against it. So Yahushua is talking about a spiritual concept here. He's actually talking about the gates of Hades or hell. So what you got to understand is in the underworld, even in scripture, similar to Greek mythology, you would have entities down there. Yahushua is talking about certain entities that would try to prevail against his assembly, in essence. What I find interesting, and I can't confirm this, but the theory is that when he said this, he was looking at the altar of Pan. And, Pan is the goat demon. Supposedly represents Azazel and all that. So I don't know if there's a legitimate connection there, but I just find it kind of interesting. But I want to look more into that historically. But yeah, supposedly Yahushua would have been literally staring at, the altar, the pagan deity Pan, which is a satyr, half goat, half human type of demon. And, he's basically making this proclamation that these demonic entities will not prevail against his congregation, his assembly, his people. So anyway, that's all I wanted to mention. And we do have a video on the channel that explains why our fellowship usually doesn't use the word church. It's mainly because that word actually represents a pagan goddess who actually, pretty much it represents the whore of Babylon in Revelations chapter 17. So that's the reason the majority of us usually don't use that term to refer to the body of the Messiah. Was that for us, Mom?
No.
Okay, so they got the wrong person. All right. So anyway, we just wanted to explain that. You can look it up. I think the video is called Congregation Assembly versus Church, or CERS. And it goes into detail into the etymology of the word church, where it comes from, and how it got into the scriptures. Is pretty much the Vatican substituted the word congregation for church, and it should never be in there. So that's basically what happens. So in your modern English Bibles, wherever it says church, the correct English term would be congregation. So I just wanted to explain that. So thank you all for joining us today. That is the conclusion of our reading here. Have a great rest of your Sabbath, all of our brothers and sisters in Yahushua Messiah. And Yahuwah willing, see you next time. Shabbat